What's more likely in this arena? Lamar Jackson hires an agent or sits out all of the 2023 season. What's more likely to you, Myles?
I mean, I would hope that he hires an agent because I don't want to go through a season without seeing Lamar Jackson. I mean, Mike, this thought occurred to me last night. Why hasn't Lamar Jackson just hired David Mulugeta? If guaranteed money is the issue, and we see that Mulugeta's just negotiated the deal for Deshaun Watson, isn't it kind of like, oh, David, I've seen what you've done for others. Please, won't you do that for me? Oh, why hasn't he done that? I don't know. All this stuff about the Lamar Jackson situation absolutely baffles me, whether it is him not having an agent, him getting non-exclusive franchise tag, and, team after team after team leaking. We don't want this guy. He's 2019 MVP. Bleep it. I don't want him. Whatever. I need a franchise quarterback, and I supplicated myself at the feet of Deshaun Watson last year. No way do I want Lamar Jackson. No, no, no. So I don't know. Maybe it is that he sits out the 2023 season because he feels disrespected, and probably he should.
David Mulugeta is the guy who engineered the Deshaun Watson deal last year. He's with Athletes First. CAA is the other major quarterback firm. And I've refrained from naming names, Myles, because the problem is I'm going to draw the line somewhere, and whoever is on the other side of it is going to be wearing me out for the rest of the day. So thank you for lighting that fuse. Thank you very much for starting me down that path and consuming maybe 2 or 3 hours of my day today. But I've said this all along. It doesn't take many phone calls if you're Lamar Jackson to find out who the best agents are. Part of the problem, though, is he's been working with the NFLPA, and there's a mindset within the union that they want players to do it themselves because there's a degree of acrimony between union management and agents generally. And they've tried to extend olive branches, but that there's a deeper battle going on here because the agents have power and influence over the players. The union wants to have the power and influence over the players. That's the battle within the battle, and that may be one of the reasons why Jackson doesn't have an agent. I think it's more likely he sits out the season than hires an agent because there's no way he's hiring an agent at this point. It's become a point of pride. He's not going to admit he was wrong. And hiring an agent in his mind would be admitting he was wrong to not have one all along. And the 2023 season, sitting it out, not many dominoes have to fall to get to that point. Okay?
Right.
We're already past the first big one, $32.4 million non-exclusive franchise tag. Teams aren't going to pursue him by all appearances. I know all it takes is one, but we've already seen this cascade of we're not interested, we're not interested, we're not interested. If nobody signs him to an offer sheet, he doesn't have a long-term contract because once he signs the offer sheet, either plays for that team or the Ravens match it. So he's in for 2023. So let's say we get to July 15, the deadline for signing him to a long-term deal if you're the Ravens, and they just don't work it out. Why would we think they're going to work it out? They haven't worked one out in 2.5 years, for crying out loud. Why are they going to work one out by July 15? So we get to July 16, $32.4 million is what his salary would be under the franchise tag. And that's the point where I would advise Lamar Jackson, if he were my client, my son, my cousin, my brother, my nephew, my friend, I would say, don't play for $32.4 million. You tell them you want the 45 that they should have put on you back in March. They're playing a game with your life here, man. Tell them you're not playing for anything less than $45 million. Yeah. I don't think there's many steps, not nearly as many as people would think, or fewer than people would think, to get to the point where he's just out for 2023. And we've seen it with Le'Veon Bell. So we've already crossed that bridge. It shouldn't surprise anybody if it happens, and it would be for a different reason. But I will not be flabbergasted if Lamar Jackson doesn't play in 2023 because we are farther down the road to that happening than I think we appreciate at this point.
Oh, yeah. No, but Mike, I mean, you and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. There was a question on the, one of the PFTPMs we did. Is it a possibility that Lamar Jackson sits out in 2023? And the answer is absolutely yes. And yeah, I think that you're right. It's not, too far from A to Z to get there, right? We're already maybe on like DCE or whatever. I don't know. I just messed up the a bet. Oh no. But I think it's a weird thing right now where you have Lamar Jackson in this situation, and you just saw what happened with Daniel Jones, right? And he's got a deal that will give him basically 37.5 million right over the next few years. And then Lamar Jackson is now, right now, as we speak, set to make 32. It's just not right. And, there have been a lot of things that have happened that have gotten us to this point. But from here to there, it's not that far.
I wonder how many more quarterbacks have to get contracts that aren't fully guaranteed before Lamar Jackson surrenders his position. And I thought maybe he was. The leak to Stephen A. Smith from Lamar's camp from 2 weeks ago today that we heard about 13 days ago, that Lamar never asked for a fully guaranteed contract. I thought that was kind of a way to distance from the idea of fully guaranteed contract. Because, again, it becomes a point of pride. You don't want to hire an agent because you don't want to admit you were wrong to not have an agent. Don't want to back off your demand for a fully guaranteed contract because you don't want to admit you were wrong to want one all along, and you should have taken probably, if not definitely, the offer that the Ravens put on the table last year. But it felt like maybe he was looking for a way to back off. Now he's never going to find out if none of these teams engage him in conversation because they all assume he wants a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. That would be the irony here, if I'm using the word properly, and I never know if I am, of him not getting any phone calls. They think he wants a fully guaranteed 5-year contract, so they're not calling him. Maybe he wants something else now, and there's no way to let anyone know because, back to the original point, he doesn't have an agent to aggressively, proactively contact these teams to say it could be worth your while to engage me in a conversation about Lamar Jackson. So this is a mess, and I feel bad for the kid because, and Chris and I had a spirited debate yesterday about Lamar Jackson. It is fair to say this, and I say this at the risk of having another clip being put on social media with Lamar Jackson retweeting it with a GIF, but it's his own fault. At a certain point, and look, I give a lot of these guys who are 25, 24, 23, 22 the benefit of the doubt because my son is 26, and to me, the older my son gets, the younger his age seems to me. So I can see myself in 10 years saying, God, he's only 35. What do we expect him to do? But at a certain point, you are grown-ass man. At a certain point, you are responsible for the decisions you've made. At a certain point, it is fair for us to say, Lamar, this is all your fault. The fact that you don't have a long-term deal, the fact that you haven't gotten your financial reward for the things you've done in the NFL, this is your fault. You were penny wise and pound foolish. You're being stubborn now. You continue to make bad decisions for your own financial future. This is your fault. At some point, it's fair to say that. And based upon how the next few weeks play out, we're probably at the point where it's more than fair to say that.
Well, thank you, Control Room, for putting my face back on the screen. So now when Mike gets retweeted, I'm going to be retweeted too, and everybody's going to associate that with me.
Am I wrong?
Well, look, Mike, I do think that, and I've said this before, this situation probably would have been avoided if Lamar Jackson had an agent, because the agent never would have let Lamar Jackson step on the field in his 4th season without a new contract, right? Josh Allen got a new deal that offseason. And if Josh Allen gets a new deal and he's not won an MVP and this player has won an MVP, then he shouldn't be stepping on the field without a new contract that pays him more than Josh Allen. I mean, that's always the way I've thought about it. So this should have been done years ago, and Lamar Jackson should never have been playing on the contract that gave him whatever it gave him in the 20 millions, right? For his 5th-year option. That thing should have been ripped up. He won an MVP award already. He should never be playing for ostensibly $32 million. That thing should have been ripped up. It never should have gotten to this point. So, I don't know. Whether it's the Ravens saying, he wouldn't engage with us and we were trying and he didn't want to do it. He was focused on football. And now we are at this point where we're at. I think, yeah, sure. Part of it goes to the Ravens too, for not just acquiescing and giving him whatever he wanted. But if you're constructing a team, you can't just always do that, right? The Ravens are not in as a desperate position as the Browns were last offseason to give Lamar Jackson that kind of contract, right? So this is where we are. And I don't really know what the solution is at this point, especially if other teams are saying that they are not interested in Lamar Jackson, which again, still baffles me whether or not you think that he wants a fully guaranteed contract. I don't know. If you're the Carolina Panthers and all it takes is an offer sheet and 2 first-round picks to potentially get Lamar Jackson, if you're the Atlanta Falcons and that's all it takes with the Washington Commanders, really? I just, you're not going to engage with him because that, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I still think the Commanders are in play for a variety of reasons that we've previously discussed. But I want to address 2 things that you said.
Okay.
And I'm going to work backward. As it relates to the Ravens, they have a track record of doing fair deals with players. I don't think This is on them. And they did a deal with Roquan Smith, who was self-represented. Now, I also kind of think that maybe they went a little overboard to get the Roquan Smith deal done so they could say, see, we know how to negotiate with a guy who represents himself. But regardless.
Which DaCosta basically did at the Combine, by the way. Yeah.
Right. They have a track record of doing fair deals and building a team. You mentioned Josh Allen. I'm going to see your Josh Allen, and I'm going to raise you a Kyler Murray.
Hell yeah.
Because think about last year. When you said he's not setting foot on the field in year 4, that's exactly the vibe that his agent put out there. He's not playing. And it didn't come initially from the agent. It came from a reporter because the agent said it to a reporter. That's why you need an agent, Lamar, because the agent calls the reporter and says, my client's not setting foot on the field this year. Go ahead and write it. Don't quote me, but go ahead and write it because you won't be wrong. He's not playing for $5 million this year. And then you get the Eric Burkhart, Ted Kaczynski Unabomber manifesto. Remember that thing that you needed a magnifying glass to read that he put on Twitter? How could I
forget?
My God, I still have a headache from trying to read that freaking thing. But that's what you get. You get the all-out assault from an agent who can go and see now. We've named CAA, Athletes First, Eric Burkhart. At least I've dropped. Now, somebody on the other side of that bubble is going to say, why didn't you mention me? You mentioned all the others. Why didn't you mention my name? So thanks again, Myles, for starting us down that path. But that's what happens when you have an agent who aggressively pushes the agenda of the client. And this all goes back to Richard Sherman. Sorry, Richard. You can go ahead and retweet this too. It wasn't enough for Richard to just say, it's good enough for me to represent myself. I have to tell everybody else, represent yourself. Everybody else, go represent yourself. You don't need an agent. Agent's bad. Self-representation, good. This is a prime example of the fact, especially at quarterback, you got to have an agent. You got to have somebody who maps out a strategy, implements that strategy, and gets you paid. And at a certain point, it's just... This is the stream of decisions Lamar Jackson has made, and he has to take ownership of it. When he wonders why he's at this point where he's yet to get his life-changing, multi-generational payday, he has responsibility for it. And so, back to our point, it's more likely he sits out 2023 and doesn't make anything this calendar year from playing football than hiring an agent. But the best move for him would be to hire an agent. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.